Last week I've been occupied by the still occupied by the Bionic to focal migration. So that's it. Treatment.
Um, I do. I can do the NBD testing. Used Sam's new PR, but it still has some problem. Sometimes I can finish the testing, and sometimes there's a segmentation fault. But I can't find any laws when and will trigger the segmentation fault. Sometimes it repeatedly happened. Sometimes it will not happen even I run the test over 1 hour. So I still try to figure out how to trigger it, in what condition I can trigger it, and try to trace it. And another one is read the SAM's segment clear code and journal code, find a little issue bug, and I will fix it tomorrow. So that is the test result. I paste a link in the chat window.
Thank you. I will put in the iPad.
Yeah. So sometimes it can finish. Maybe I can repeat it many times. There's no error, but sometimes it repeatedly to happen the segmentation fault. And when I set the offset to be a larger, for example, about 50 gigabits, FL cannot run. So I'm not sure if it is FL issue or our code issue. So still need to make sure. Any question?
I mean, you'd have to debug it and you'd want to debug it and identify the problem. For the seg fault, I can't currently reproduce it, so until I have more time to work on that, I'm just not going to.
Yeah, I can't find any certain condition can trigger it, but so.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty clearly a timing bug. Like, it's real. I just don't have a way to reproduce it right now.
Mm-hmm.
As for the other thing, I'd ask you to identify why it's happening.
Pardon?
You mentioned that FIO does not work if you set, I think, the IO size?
Offset, yes, the offset. I create many jobs, and each one set the different offset. And if I set the offset a bigger size, for example, 50 gigabits, and so the FL stop there. But no error happen in the NBD side. Just FL stop there. So I'm not sure.
It's using the normal NBD FIO backend. So if the IOs just aren't happening, like you set the size to be big enough, right? In FIO?
Offset.
Sure, but the size of the device itself is big enough to support all of those offsets, right?
500 G.
Which is bigger than the offsets you're setting?
Yes. Bigger.
Yeah, I'm not sure. You'd have to look at the FIO documentation. There are ways to increase FIO debugging, which I'd also recommend. The FIO source code isn't that difficult to read, so that's another option.
Okay, thank you. I just want to test if I increase the segment used, and if the GC will influence the I/O performance. So I want to write most of the disk and make sure they do many GC work, and to see if the performance is getting worse. So
yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah, I just want to do that, but can't do that things currently. Okay. Yeah, that's all, Gefu.
Thank you, Trinh. Oh no.
Hello. Last week, or the past week, I picked back up the document you mentioned last week, Gefu, regarding documenting recovery. I'm still working on that. There are a few questions that Sam helped me answer. So hopefully I'll be done with it by next meeting. And also I synced up with the Yingxin following the the discussion on refactoring with either unique PTR or foreign PTR connection. So what was decided for now is that I'll continue doing the refactor with the unique PTR, but keep in mind that we might need to change that to foreign PTR later. So the way I'm implementing it now should be pretty easy to transition to foreign PTR, maybe with like some sort of a wrapper, but it definitely wouldn't require all the changes that I'm doing now to do them again. So.
Can you do some wrap the unique PTR with some wrapper, so we can change the wrapper instead of an overhaul like you are doing?
Yeah, either that or just change the type def.
Yes, that would be better.
So yeah, should be pretty simple.
Yeah, sounds great.
And yeah, that's it for me.
Vernon.
Hi, everybody. I was working on introducing to classic OSD the changes I made to the Scrub state machine so that it will match what I did in Crimson. I had one question that Sam just helped me understand in the last hour. It's almost ready for SOPR, and that's it more or less. I plan to spend today, tomorrow, reading what Radek did on transactions in Crimson, and so that I'll be able to use it. That's it.
Thank you, Vernon. Sam?
Yep, I'm working on the logic for extent still. I came up with a scheme for embedding all of the relevant allocation information into the LBA layer and avoiding the extent map entirely. So I'm working on implementing that. It's a little bit more complicated, but it eliminates an entire second mapping, so it's definitely worth it. That's it.
Sam, I missed your first words. You're working on logic for extend SSL?
So originally the idea was Chunmei created an extent map implementation that we were going to use as a mapping from object addresses to logical addresses within CStore. But as I was integrating it, I realized that I can actually embed the only extra piece of information I need into the LBA layer itself. So I'm cutting out the extent map, I think. Sorry about that, Chunmei. I didn't anticipate this before.
Okay.
At least that's what I'm working on. We'll see how it works out. I may still need it. The main sticking point was figuring out how to handle clones, but I think I'm going to add what is essentially an indirection into the LBA map itself. That is a logical address inside of the LBA B-tree manager itself. The entry, instead of pointing at a physical address, might point at another logical address. Thus eliminating the need for a second mapping. It will make more sense when I finish it, but that's what I'm working on. It's changed up what I was planning to do a little bit. So I'm working on it. I think that's it.
Okay. I see now. Thank you. Shehan.
Last week I implemented the get and set address methods in CStore. Right now I'm trying to implement the read and write meta methods in CStore, and I'm also looking into the marks problem that might be caused by interruptible future and the CStar thread. That's all for me.
Just a little more background. Mark is observing some memory leak, and he tried to bisect the offending commit, and he found that it was the interruptible future who introduced these regressions. So John is looking into it. And
Yeah,
Yingxing?
that's the case.
For Ono chip part, last week I fixed a minor bug, and to implement Ono erase feature, I think I have figured out a way to manage tree level invariants across recursive merge and split. Currently, I'm working on the last piece to apply children merge in parent node. And after that, I will move forward to layout and stage level implementations. And there's some progress I noticed in C Star native stack. I paste here. It seems there are some efforts to improve C Star native stack, majorly about zero copy path and some bug fixes of the native stack. That's all from me.
Okay, that'll be a good reading. One more thing I just want to mention that I managed to fix the never complete unit test we have been seeing over the last couple of months. That's because the Jenkins, because when we push another chain to a PR, Jenkins just aborts the running task. Sometimes it left us with some running unit test, and they not get a chance to be finished by the parent process. So I added a step to abort to kill them when the Jenkins job is aborted. It seems to work. But that's it. Anything else? Nope. But by the way, we will have a CTS next week.
Yes.
So feel free to update to add your interesting topic in the pad.
Sam, do you want to stay in this link or do we go back to?
This works for me. Other people may want to hang out.
That's one second.
This call is fine.
See if the CTS link is around. Yes, it is. One sec. This is the CTS link.
Cool. Elon, do you want to ask? You said you had a few other questions.
Yeah. So you mentioned we have the log of the primary of the replicas, and we have some sort of an authoritative log.
Yeah. So for that, I'm going to so have you personally read the Rados paper?
No, I haven't.
Read the Rados paper, and we'll discuss it next week. So one of the things that was originally interesting about Ceph is the process by which we obtain an authoritative log. It's called peering. And that state machine and peering state.h is the thing, but the best explanation of it, honestly, is the original paper.
Okay, I'll go.
I've got a link for you. Here you go. Or you don't have to wait till next week either. If you want to ping me. What time zone are you in, by the way? I actually have no idea. Are you in Europe?
What time zone I'm on? I'm on Israel, so it's UTC plus
morning.
3 or plus 2. Yeah, so it's 8:15 a.m. right now for me.
Yeah, well, there's always email.
It's UTC plus 2. Thanks, Ronan. Yeah. So the second question.
Actually, I'm not sure now that we started the saving time. It's a good question where we are now.
Honestly, the easiest way to do it would be to send me a calendar link or something. We can negotiate that way.
Yeah.
Google
Yeah.
Calendar would figure it out. Or we can wait till next week. We've got the Crimson stand-up and the morning version of the Q&A. My morning, your evening, I guess.
Yeah.
I actually don't know how that's true.
The second question was, so in PG in log-based recovery, so we're going over the missing set, right? And we talked about how well in urgent recovery we recover a specific object, and in log-based recovery, my question is it possible that while we're recovering from the missing set, there will be some sort of interruption, or is it granted that we complete recovering all of the objects?
Oh, well, okay, so there are a couple of obvious interruptions. One of them is we can't recover one of the objects. So if there's something in the unfound set, I forget what the code does, but I think it just exits out of the log-based recovery process and puts itself in, state unfound or whatever. In general, though, we will just run until we recover everything.
Okay.
The notion being that by the time we've bothered to set up the reservation state for a particular PG, it's time to just get it done, go all the way through. That way we can release the reservation, let another PG do its thing.
All right, sounds good. Yeah, those were my questions for now.
I can quickly sketch the peering thing just to give you some structure. Is anyone else interested in? Yeah, well, maybe. So at a super duper high level, do you have a sense of what I mean by authoritative log? That's sort of the crux of the question.
Well, yeah. So I'm assuming it's always correct. Like it maintains the most recent or the most updated versions of the objects.
Most recent updated is where we get into trouble. So as an illustrating example, let's say there's exactly one client and exactly one placement group. The client has submitted 10 IOs on the same object. Because of the way Liberatos works, the rights that it submitted will all occur in order, and they will increment that object's version by one each. So let's say we then cut power to the primary before any of the requests have gotten back to the client. What are the valid versions of the authoritative log that could result? Or what would make an authoritative log wrong? What must be true about the authoritative log?
Neither of them got back to the client?
None of the 10 did. So the client sent 10 IOs, but it didn't get a commit on any of them.
Yeah,
what possible states of the log could then could be correct?
Well, if none of them committed, then if we cancel all the IOs, then none of them.
We didn't cancel them. The primary crashed.
Oh, right, but then we would want to restart them. No.
The OSD, yes. But when the OSD comes back up, the very second it comes up, the first read it serves might not be from that client. It might be from a different. It might be from a different client. So, what possible states of the PG are valid? Or to put it another way, what do we need to do to not break the rules? What can we do without breaking the rules?
So I guess we can serve them again, and then grants that we make sure that those rights committed, right?
But we don't. So for one thing, they may not have committed. We turned the OSD off. We don't know. So from our point of view, from the client's point of view, or us setting up this scenario, it's possible that all 10 of the IOs never got to the OSD. They're in a router somewhere or a switch somewhere in transit. The packets themselves literally never got there. Or it's possible that all 10 committed and the replies didn't get back to the client. Or any intermediate state between those two. All of those are possible. Note, in the second case, the OSD has no way of knowing which of those 10 the client saw commits for. As far as it's concerned, they all committed. And it can't prove otherwise. So the answer is that as long as the client never saw any of the responses, it is it would be valid for the log to contain none of those writes. It would be valid for it to contain all of those writes. It would be valid for it to contain the first 5, the first 6, or the first 7. But it would not be valid for it to have writes 2 and 6, but none of the others, because they're submitted in order, right?
Yep.
So with that sort of intuition, what we mean by an authoritative log is we have every write a client could provably have seen committed. The OSDs have a slightly stronger constraint because they have no way of knowing whether a client actually saw the reply, which means that any write an OSD sent a commit for must never be forgotten in the future. So in general, the way we do this is, let's make a few simplifying assumptions about the way OSD maps work. For one thing, let's assume we have all of the OSD maps back to the beginning of time. So let's say we receive a new OSD map that says I OSD 10 and now the primary for PG 1.12. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go back through the set of OSD maps back to the beginning of time and find every acting set OSD member that has ever been in this set. I am then going to query all of them. As long as I receive a log back from at least one acting set member of every interval, that is every contiguous sequence of epochs where the acting set was the same, I must necessarily have at least every IO an OSD sent back to a client, because we write to all replicas and get a commit back before we send a commit to clients. So the super duper high level intuition is the process of peering is the process by which we make sure we contact at least one member of every acting set that could matter. The rest of the paper is basically the processes by which we cut that set down, because obviously we don't want to keep all of the OSD maps back to the beginning of time. Does that give you at least some intuition?
Yep. But
Yep.
I'll definitely read into the paper for more detail.
And we can discuss it more next week. I'll read it myself.
Yep.
I haven't done it in a couple of years. Any other questions from anyone else?
Sounds
Over on the
good.
topic. All right, talk to you later.
Thank you. Talk later. Have a good one.
Bye, guys. Thanks.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.